This is probably one of the greatest hindrances in church life when people are not cooperating. Family life, when husbands and wives are not cooperating, when children are not cooperating. We went on a team to a country, often a long distance, and they had given us some rules. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, because it's an offense to the people where we're going. And one of the rules was that the women are to wear dresses, because in this country they consider a woman wearing pants to be a male factor and a kind of a bad deal. And so they asked us to do things different. And several of the pastors' wives said, well, I'll tell you one thing, they're not going to tell us how to dress. We're going to do the way we want to do. And we're going to wear our bell-bottom breeches, whatever we want to do, and nobody's going to tell us what to do. I mean, just because we're going into their country, they can't tell us what to do. I wonder why they can't. You know, I believe that this nation fears everything except God. They have a fear of everything, but they're not afraid of God. They're not afraid to violate God's laws. After all, you say, well, that's not God's law. Listen, folks, God Almighty is going to come against you if you decide you're going to violate what the church is asking you to do. Forget the law. The fact of the matter is that they just simply asked us what to do. The blessing of the Lord rested upon me, and they noticed it. They saw immediately that God's blessing rested upon me, and they couldn't figure it out. They said, everywhere you go, you get favor. Everywhere, everybody's got your favor. I was walking around, and law officials would bow to me. I couldn't figure out what the world's going on. It didn't make a bit of sense to me, and it more did to them. And the military people bowed down to me. And I said, what in the world is going on here? And somebody said, I know what's wrong with you. A favor of the God's on you. And I said, yes, and if you want to know the rest of it, I'm obedient. You know. Now, cooperation. If your children will cooperate with you in the home, and you manage it to such an extent, they're going to cooperate with you. They're not going to cooperate with you because they have to. That may be the beginning of it. But they're going to cooperate with you because it is being taught to them. It is something that is proper. It's right for me to do. I don't need to have a police on the road to check radar for me. It's a proper speed for me to run. When you learn to be in cooperation with the state, the laws of the land, and all, you're going to have a lot more victories. You take, we were fishing one day, myself and the boys, our sons, and here come a game warden. And I said to the boys, I said, now, just don't get excited about a game warden. I said, you know, if he asks for your license, just show him to him and thank him. You know, he went down past us and just said hello and walked on past us. Goes down to check other people. Never stopped to talk to us. And I told the boys, I said, you know, he could tell by looking at us we're not out here crooked. But if you're nervous and everything, he might check you out, you know. You know what? You can be at peace when you learn to cooperate. When children learn to cooperate in school, they get along a whole lot better, don't they? When parents cooperate with teachers. See, I was on the school board for a number of years, and you'd be surprised what teachers have to go through. The parents always think the teacher's wrong because the children said so. And I don't know what they think a teacher is. I'm not sure. But you know, I had the privilege of getting these people to understand you need to cooperate with that teacher. And if you don't take care of that pupil, you're going to have a problem all your life, not only with the teacher, but they're going to violate all the laws of the land and everything else. You have to have cooperation. The church has to have cooperation. We have to have people cooperating. One of the ways you cooperate is I'm not looking to see if you are doing things right or wrong. My idea is I want to see you improve. I want to see you change. If you are used to coming to church late, start working to see what the problem is, the managing end of it. You cooperate with the Holy Spirit. And folks, listen, let me tell you this right up front. If you don't cooperate with leadership, you will not cooperate with the Holy Ghost. If you want God's blessing resting upon you, it's cooperation. We have to cooperate with heaven in order to receive the benefits that heaven has to offer us. And God Almighty help us to do that. Because we're going to need heaven to help us. When I say heaven, I'm talking about the Heavenly Father, or the Son, the name of Jesus. I'm talking about angelical host, the Holy Ghost, and all. I'm talking about all of heaven working for you. Because this is very important. We're going to need them. Now let's go to hobby management. I could spend a long time on that, but I think you can catch the point. Let's go to hobby management. I believe hobbies is a very important thing, and I have been a hobby person for many years. You can go in extreme with that, and you can spend a lot of money on it. But if you're going to have a hobby, your spouse may not have a hobby, and you're spending all the money on you and not your spouse. She may not say anything, or he may not say anything. And at the same time, we need to be considerate of each other in the form of hobbies. You see, now some people like hobbies. There are coin collectors, stamp collectors, and they like to get the different stamps and different coins. At one time, I had coins from 100 different countries, and I decided it's time for me to unload and sell out so that I don't get so intoxicated with that. I had some very valuable stamps, and I was spending my money. But some hobbies were making me money. For an example, we had game birds. We started out as a hobby. It soon became a kind of a business. We had game birds and different kind of fowl from across the world, and just a lot of different fancy fowl and so on like this, and pigeons and etc. And I got up in the high ranks of these things. In fact, I was up to the officials. I just became vice president and was ready to step into the president. And I said, no, before I become a president of this international thing, I'm going to have to put my ministry first. My ministry has to come first. You see, this is the thing, folks. So your hobbies, it's good to have a hobby. Maybe you got a few fish in your house, or maybe you have a hobby of something else. I know a woman, well, in fact, I know two of them, that has a hobby of salt and pepper shakers. And they have many, many. The one in Iowa, I think, had 3,000. I think she said she has 3,000 sets of salt and pepper shakers. And I have a sister-in-law that has many, many. But you see what happens, and I've done it before myself, when I know they have that hobby and I run across the salt and pepper shaker that's real thrilling, I buy it for them. So everybody seems to add on to it. But it is something, when you have a hobby, and I'm not saying if you don't have one you're wrong, but I'm saying if you do have one, don't let it get the best of you. I heard a preacher that if I mentioned his name, you'd probably know him. He was telling this story. He said, I know a preacher who decided he's going to go start saving stamps and he wanted to be in stamp collecting, and he got to going to this meeting, stamp collecting, and he go to that meeting. And the first thing you know, he lost his ministry. And he said, well, I'm going to either have to give up my stamps or give up my ministry. And he said, it's going to be terribly hard to give up this thing I've been working for so long. But he said, I tell you, the first person that offers me $60,000 for that set, I'll sell it right now. Now you think about a stamp collection, $60,000, and he's talking about it's worth many, many times more than that. That's a lot of stamps. Now, pastor lost interest in his calling because of stamp collection. That's what that means right there. And that's the reason I want to tell you that story. And here's another thing is interest management. That's not money now. This is speaking about your interest. You have to learn to manage what you're interested in. You can get sidetracked, or you can get overthrown by things you're interested in. So you say, well, okay, today I want a dog. Next week I want a cat. Next week I want a ferret. And it's people just shift around. You know, well, I'm going to sell this dog. Now I'm going to buy this. Now I'm going to sell this. Now I'm going to buy this. Now I want this. Now, and after a while, you get where you're not managing. Let me be polite in saying this, but if you have a cat or a dog in the house, you have to manage that cat or dog. That is not a dog house. This is where human beings live. And it needs to smell like human beings live there instead of animals. So, but management you can actually have cats and dogs in the house, which I hate with everything in me. They're fine outdoors, but not inside. Now, I'm not saying about your house, I'm talking about mine. I don't want them. We had a dog in the South that one day ran in through the house, and we had fleas in that house after a while, and we had a problem getting rid of them fleas. I didn't know them fleas multiply that fast. So if you do have a cat or dog, you have to manage the flea department and the restroom facilities and changing the litter box. And so you see, this is all part of management. If you don't take care of that, you can someday have real problems. A house can get stinking in a hurry, especially you let children spill milk on the carpet, and you let food kind of get decayed on this carpet and so on. You can have a house in a mess. And I'm not coming checking your house out. I'm just saying that there are certain things that people shift their interest. Now, like for an example, antiques. Some people want antique. Well, they don't stop with this, and they buy another antique. They buy another antique. Now, in some circumstances, those antiques could be more valuable later on. We have some antiques in our yard that I don't like in a garden. We've been picking them up and throwing them away for a long time. They're called rocks. They've been around for a long time. Nobody's interested in them. Scrapbooks and picture taking. I tell you, folks, these interest managing, I'm interested in taking pictures. How many pictures is enough? I don't know that I can tell you. There are certain things that you'd like to capture. While a baby is young, you want to capture the pictures. There are some things that you'd like to capture. If you were a professional photographer, there is certain things you want to take a picture of the sunset and so forth. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm talking about getting carried away without management. You're not managing the thing. You're just spending money and spending money and spending money. I had a problem brought to me. A man said his wife just completely has got out of control. I mean, she takes a picture of everything. And he said, he told me how much money it costs to develop these pictures in a year's time. Listen, it's not very many people could afford that. I'm talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. I'm talking about spending as much money on picture taking as what a lot of people make in a year's time. I mean, I'm not exaggerating that now. What causes people to shift from one interest to another? In other words, you're interested in this now, you're interested in that, then you're interested in this, then you're interested in that. See, it's a lack of management. If you can manage, all right at this present time, I have this, and I'm going to be satisfied with it. But at the same time, I'm just going to touch on this because we'll get to this later. A fellow wants to buy a gun to go hunting with. And then out the way he wants to buy another gun, and then he wants to buy another gun, and then he wants to buy another gun, and then he wants to buy another gun. He needs this, and he needs this, and then he needs a boat, and then he needs this, and he needs that. And then his wife says something to him that I'd like to have something. Well, we can't afford that. See, that's because your interest supersedes her interest. It's the lack of management. Good common sense will tell you to hold it. You know, if I'm going to spend $300 on a gun, I'm using that as an illustration. My wife might want something $300 too. And this is all to help us to get back to managing this thing. Now, let's talk about recreation management. Are you golfing or goofing? See, there is a place for golfing. Never did it in my life. Never planned to. But I am not opposing going golfing. But at the same time, is golfing taking you away from something that's very valuable that you should be at home doing? If you are in recreation, such as running, it's all right to run. But there also needs to be some other things taken care of. See, let me just slip back to interest just a little bit. You pick up the newspaper, and you're reading the newspaper, and your wife's trying to take care of everything else while you're reading your newspaper. There has to come a time when we start thinking. And Americans usually have something to think for them. That's television. It does your thinking for you. So your walking and running needs to be managed. How much time can you spend? And you have to manage around that. You manage how we're going to do this. That makes a lot of difference. The Bible says, but she that liveth in pleasure is dead while she liveth. Pleasure is all right, but at the same time, excessive pleasure is where we have our problems. Not managing correctly. Recreational. And now we talk about, we're putting all these kind of together here. And let's go to sports management, and I may slip back and forth a little bit here. After school sports. All right. I've known parents who were just about frustrated because Monday the children have this at school, after school hours. They have their basketball, and they have this, and they have that, and tomorrow they have this, and then they have that. And a child will look at a parent and say, if you don't let me go, I'm going to. That child will start controlling you and will begin to show you that they're going to take control of everything. And a lot of times, if the parents decide not to take their children to everything, then the grandma, the granddad begins to protest. You need to get your children in there. You need to let them have some fun. Yeah, all right, you come and take them. Listen, you got every night something. You know, we got practice this, and Tuesday we're going to practice for singing at church, and then we have a hot dog roast on Wednesday, and then we got something else on a Thursday, and then Friday we have this, then Saturday we have this, and Sunday we have that. It's a constant flow of sports, recreation, running from one game to another. Well, we want to go watch this ball game tonight, and we want to do this tonight, and tomorrow night we're going to do this, and we're going to have to see this professional ball game and the car race. And you know, folks, a spiritual-minded person has to get to the place where he says, all right, is this going to be a benefit to me and my family? Where do I stop? How much is too much hunting and fishing? How much hunting and fishing can you do? And I'm going ahead of the story just a little bit. I'll get back to that boxing in a minute. A little more than that, maybe. What's going to come first? You know, I could fish every day and just really love it, because I like fishing. But I have to discipline myself and say, no, I have to manage my life. Okay, we're going to go fishing now, and we're going to do this now. But who comes first, God or your sports? I believe America is a sports god country. Sports have become the supreme being. And boxing and wrestling have become such, you get that in a child. You know, one time the Lord said to me, it's impossible for a person to be a boxer unless he has two spirits operating in him. The first one has to be the spirit of lust. He has to have the spirit of lust. Second, he has to have the spirit of murder. That doesn't mean he's going to kill anybody, but he has to have them. If he doesn't have them, he's not going to stay there. Because what draws him is lust and murder. Now you think about that. And he said, if you don't believe that, you watch how they dress, or rather undress. What would make you enjoy hitting somebody that blood flies out of them? I mean, what the world are we talking about? You see, that could be risky business, because you can risk your soul at that kind of thing. Now, we talked about ball game practice and basketball practice and this practice and that practice and some other practice and this practice and that. But how far do you go? How far do you really go with all this? I'm not going to say that it's wrong for you to sit down and watch a ball game, but I am going to tell you, when church service has to be cut short because the ball game's on, something's wrong. God is secondary. I told you all this story before, but some listening to these tapes will not have not heard this. I was at a preacher's place. I preached at his church for days. I was there for 8 days, I believe it was, but when Sunday came, I'm speaking. And I'm watching people keep looking at their watches. Looking at their watches. And I thought, have I preached that long, or what in the world? Then I saw the preacher going like this. And I thought, I better stop. I don't know what's going on, but I better stop. So I just turned it over to him. I just quit. I never prayed for anybody. No, I just turned it over to the preacher. He stood up and said, okay, service dismissed. And boom, out the door they went. The car started pulling out one right after the other. I mean, just going. And I told Esther, said, what in the world is going on? We was invited to the preacher's place for lunch. And we got there, and these cars was parked everywhere. We were late because we let the cars get out that had to go, because I wasn't in that big a hurry. Do you know what? We almost didn't get any lunch. We're glued to that television. And I said, what is this? Super Bowl. Is that what they call Super Bowl? Whatever. Mm-hmm. And I said, so that's ahead of God. And the preacher's right in on it. And then he don't know why his church is going downhill. I know why. Folks, you can't put anything ahead of God. Neither be ye idolaters, or some of them, as it is written, people sit down to eat and drink and rose up to play. All they could think about is eating, drinking, and playing. And that's what the Bible says. It comes from Exodus chapter 32:6 and translates over to 1 Corinthians chapter 10:7, where Paul's referring to that. Now let's go to vacation management. Vacationing. How often do you go on a vacation? My wife and I have wondered for years. There's people say, well, we have to have a honeymoon and we got to get away and we have to. Do you know, our children went with us everywhere we went. You know why? Because our children wanted to go and we wanted them there. We weren't there fighting with them and they're fighting with us. We go to have a good time. Somebody told me one time I dread vacationing because I know that the first thing that's going to happen as soon as we get in the car, before we get 10 miles, me and my wife will be fighting. And the children will be fighting the whole way. And this is the kind of vacation they're having. You don't have to have that kind of vacation. If you manage that vacation right, you don't have to have children running over everything. I told a pup one time, I said, I know all your children's names. Don't do this. Pete, don't do that. Henry, don't do this. Jake, don't do that. Johnny, don't do this. Just a constant flow of, you know, I cut their names. How much do you spend even if you do go? How much are you going to spend on this thing? What are we going to eat? What are we going to do? And we're going to get into hotel management and travel management after a little bit. We have to plan. You have to do some thinking. Is this vacation, do we have to cut corners? Do we have to save on this vacation? How much dare we spend? If we're going to go to this place and this place and this place and this place and this place, and one of the children say, well, hey, I want to do this. Hey, I want to do that. Hey, I want to do this. Hey, I want to do that. And after a while, the parents come home broke because the parents didn't manage. I've seen it. Just, let's do this, let's do that. Well, I have to. Well, we have to do this because if we don't, you know, we're neglecting our children. Who said you are? That child needs to learn in that home where he's at right now or she's at, there's some limitations on life, what we're going to do. Just because you're on vacation doesn't mean that you're going to stop everywhere the children decide to stop. And you're not going to buy them everything they look at. There are just some restrictions. See, this is a part of management that has caused many heartaches over the years. So we just work and work and work and work to try to get all this paid off. We can't get our rent paid. We can't get this paid. And the house payment's due and the car payment's due, and we can't hardly afford it because we got all this money spent down here. So we go borrow money, and then we try to borrow money to pay off something else, and it's a routine of problems. How much do you pay for a motel? Let's go take the travel management, the hotel management, and the vacation and sports management, and all these together. Now, all right, how much are we going to spend for motels? What kind of a motel are we going to stay in? Are you going to stay in a motel that's inferior? And some of them are. Terrible. We went into a motel one time, only one around at that area. And we got into this motel. The air conditioner's not working. And I told my wife, look, it isn't that we bought a cheap motel. We paid enough for this motel. And so I went over there and I said, look, I'm not trying to complain, but I said, this air conditioner's not working. It's hot. So they came over and said, well, would you mind moving to another room? And then we'll fix it. So we moved. And I'm sitting there, and the next door, and it was a boo-woo and a boo here and a boo there and a here boo there boo. And finally, I get up and I go over to the office and I said, you know, I guess you think I'm a chronic complainer. I'm not. But I'll never be able to sleep with that dog barking all night. The boss man happened to have been there. He said, "Sir, you've had it. Do you mind taking your car and driving down here?" He said, "I'm going to put you in one that you are going to be happy in." They put us in a huge room. They put us in a big, super duper, one of the nicest suites you ever saw in your life. It's for the big shots to stay there. It's where you pay a whole bunch of money to get into that, and that's for the big boys down there. I don't even remember where it was, but we got in there. I mean, it was sophisticated. I told my wife, "Sorry, we have to leave in the morning." It was really nice. And they apologized to me. They said, we want to apologize for all that, that problem we had. And that's good management. You see, they recognize that they need to do something. But how much are you going to spend? Some people want to sleep in the very best hotels. Others, let's say you're going to vacate with somebody else, and they want to stay in a hotel that don't cost much, and some of them that don't cost much ain't worth much. I mean, when you got roaches running around trying to eat your stuff, and when you got, we were crawled in a bed one time, got in this hotel, didn't know what we was getting into. It's past 12 o'clock at night, and we had to sleep, and they put us down there in a dungeon, and somebody had been smoking cigarettes and burned a hole in the clothes at the bed. And the young people's down there are drinking and they're carrying on. I said, "What are we doing in here? I mean, dear Lord, this is not the place for us to be." And so you're going to have to decide that if you just go out and just drive down the road. Now, I noticed today you can kind of do this. You can get on the telephone and call and find out what the price is. And how often should we go on a trip? Well, I can't decide that for you, but you can decide it. And how far do you go? You go 1,000 miles, 500 miles, 200 miles? Where are you going? What are you going to do? One of the things I'd like to encourage you to do, don't go on a vacation without taming the children. Make some understanding. Set them down and say, "Look, we're not going on a wild chase here. We're going to have cooperation. We're going to, when we go to a restaurant, we're going to decide what you're going to eat to a certain extent. We're not just going to buy you everything you want and then you let it lay, because we're not going to waste people's stuff. And we're going to do it the right way." And vacation is one of the biggest, horriblest things that a lot of people don't enjoy. They go on these trips and they have one awful mess. Well, what's the purpose of the trip anyway? If all you're going to do is go out to the mountain to fight, you can do that at home. It won't cost you as much. What about going on a vacation, leaving your children behind, or your family behind, or the baby behind? I'm not deciding that for you. That's part of your managing. Do we take the babies along or don't we? Is there a reason to take the babies? Is it a reason not to take the babies? There's some times that it's good for parents to say, "Okay, we're going to leave the little ones with so-and-so and we're going to go," or grandmother or somebody. Well, if we decided to babysit our grandchildren and great-grandchildren and all this, I expect we'd be in full-time business. So now, you see, let's look at this travel management as we come along here. Here's the thing I've observed over the years. When we lived in the South, we made a decision for us to get to Georgia at a certain time from Virginia. That means it's so many hours of travel time, so long that we can spend in the restroom and food area and etc. So we have to manage that. We want to be home by a certain time. You say, "Well, it doesn't matter." Well, that's a different story. But if you start managing, here's what can happen. You can go into a restroom and everybody's taking their time, and then they're walking around in the store seeing what they can buy, and you can spend an awful lot of money and time there before you know it. And what I'm saying this for is we have taken the 15-passenger van already and traveled with people. And I would say to the people generally, all right, now look, we have 15 minutes here. So let's try to be back in the van in 15 minutes. Well, who do you think you are? Well, my outfit. And it works. That way we know we can make it to a certain time, at a certain place at a certain time. And proper management can shorten the time that you'd otherwise lose. And here's another thing that I find about traveling, is you almost always hear somebody, oh, I forgot. I left. And then that's the reason I'm kind of gray-haired. I have heard that I don't know how many times. Oh, I forgot something. Oh, I forgot this. Oh, I left my pocketbook. Oh. And then I think, oh. So we run here and we run there and we run back and forth. Do you realize that the price gas is now, and you have to make a trip 10 miles back to pick something up somebody forgot, and then come back 10 miles again to the starting point where you were at when they found out about it? You know how many miles that is? It's no longer 10 miles. You see, all this matters, management. Yet you may have to have a checklist. When we first got our RV to travel long distance, we had a checklist. Do you have the hose in? Is the electric unhooked? Do you have this done? Do you have your jacks up? Do you have your wheels back where they belong? Is the steps in? Did you check the oil? Did you check this? And did you check that? And and this way we could at least manage to make sure that we had everything right. And that way you say, well, I went over check that. A fella's going to run a jet airliner and go to haul you on it. He can't just say, well, I think everything's okay. I think it is. No, he has to check everything. He has to look at that gauge. He can't say the gauge is okay. No, he checks that gauge. Just the other week, just recently, he checked that gauge. He said, hey, we got a problem. This one don't match up. The right engine don't match up with the left one. Then we get on a plane just recently, and the radar didn't match up. One radar system said one thing, another said something else. Now, one of them's off. It reminds me so much of church. Well, which one's off? So they had to get an expert in to decide which one's off. And it took a long time to figure it out. So in traveling management, whether you're flying or whatever, it can be hair-raising if you don't have the cooperation with your family. When you have to go from this place here, and I don't know why it is, the same airline company will land you here, then you go over there a mile to get on the next airplane, and watch this, we got over there, run, and found out they changed the gates. The gate is over there. I can't understand that. Somebody's not managing right or something. So you miss the plane. You can't be ever at one time. Now let's go a little more to this hotel management. This is a place where you sleep and rest. It's not a place to be loud and boisterous and laughing and hollering. The same as that restaurant, which I don't know where the restaurant got to, but anyway, we used to have a restaurant in here. They may not be in order, but anyway, when you go to that restaurant, be courteous. just being courteous. You know, we get real service at a restaurant because I make sure, and we've been doing this, when we went into a restaurant tonight, because somebody given us a gift card to go to this restaurant, when they saw us coming, I knew right away they knew who we were because they're not going to have a problem with us. See, they know that. They soon catch on because we've had a number of gift cards from that place. We had a bunch of gift cards from that place. So we got to eat there. We never ate there before much. But anyway, we got those gift cards. And it's interesting when they want to serve you. They want to serve you. You're in management. You're managing your lunch. I said to them, we have a meeting tonight, and it's going to take everything for us to make it. And what's the fastest thing we can do here? You know, when I said that, I could tell that lady that was taking care of us said, I'll get you out of here in a hurry. And I mean, she come past and looked at our cups to see if we got any water needs or anything. And I mean, she was serving us right there. She was right there. And you see, this is all in management. You manage, then the other people will manage. and you get loud and boisterous and grouchy and fussy. I think it's ridiculous, if I could tell you this, to charge me 15% for somebody to give me something to drink. Well, I could bring my own juice. 15%. I think that's ridiculous. But you better pay it with a smile. Because they're not going to want your complaining. Now we're going to change the subject. There should have been some stars there and lightning and thunder. Excuse management. This is one of my tough ones to teach. Just don't make excuses to me. I don't believe in them. And I don't think God believes in them much, because he said, and they all with one consent began to make excuses. They didn't have any, just made them. The first said unto him, I bought a piece of ground and I must needs go to see it. Big deal. When did you start buying land and then go look at it after you buy it? I pray thee, have me excused. Another said, I bought 5 yoke oxen. I must go prove them. Why didn't you prove them before you bought them? Excuse. I pray thee, have me excused. Another said, I have married a wife, therefore I could not come. Please have me excused. You know, the problem with that is, you start making excuses, you'll make excuses for spiritual things, your spiritual failures, your natural failures, and everything. You start making excuses. And one day the Lord said, I will have you excused. You will have all the excuse now you need. I will no longer have anything to do with you. The door is now shut. It's over. Go out in the byways and hedges and bring them in. See, this thing, we need to make a decision that excuses are not legitimate answers to most cases. There is such a thing as an excuse. There really is. There's just sometimes you can't help it. You get into, I've seen this happen before, not that I was late, but I'd get into a place and the person running the cash register don't know what they're doing. And then you stand there for a half hour, and then by the time you get up at this busy place, then they put that light on. And you stand there and wait and wait and wait and wait. And another thing, folks, I was in this excuse management business. They had given us some horrible seats on an airplane. And they told us that we'd have to wait till we get to the headquarters before we could get to the place to load you up. So I'm standing in line. There's a lady ahead of me, and they're taking their time. I stood there for 15 minutes, and I thought I could have gotten that line over there. He took care of 20 people probably by the time this guy took care of one. but I can't shift now. She walked away, and the guy said to me, he said, I'm just here taking care of her problem. You'll have to get in line over there. You know what? I could have been late. That fella saw me shifting over there. And I'll tell you what he did. He kept an eye on me. Folks, you know what? If you stop making excuses, the Lord will help you. That guy watched me get in that line. When I got up there, he said, what can I do for you? I said, I need a seat change. He said, let me see your tickets. And I handed them to him, and I mean quickly. He knew it was time for me to get on that plane. He quickly handed me these tickets. He said, you and your wife are sitting together. I said, thank you. He said, you're welcome. If you want God's blessing on you, stop making excuses. Just don't make excuses. He don't like them. There is a time for excuse. Now, don't misunderstand me. I mean, you had 4 flat tires on the way to church. And you had to get somebody to come and put them all on. You know, something like this. And furthermore, you know, you can get, like if I was going to Pennsylvania, we've got a wife and I believe we was going to Indiana, and I was supposed to be preaching out there. We started up the highway and it started snowing. Somebody's running careless, got in the wrecks. It's held everything up. We're sitting there and waiting. It's snowing and we're waiting. And we're waiting. And I am kind of getting, you know, my heart's beating faster than it should. And I'm kind of half disgusted at this poor driving. So we finally got to go. And we got up the road another 10 miles, another accident. Got us held up for a long time. And so you see, you can't always blame people for that. But I guess that's an excuse. Probably a legitimate one. And at the same time, you go, well, the reason I wasn't here was because. Most of the time, that's not the reason. Everybody's still happy. How much more time I got on this tape? 12 minutes? I'm coming along a little faster tonight. All right, now, let's take care of the mature management. When are you ever going to grow up? I mean, are we going to stay children all of our lives? Are we really going to be just kind of, well, give me some time to grow up? How long you want to grow up? You know, I tell you what, there's a dad had a little boy that he'd talked to, this little fella, and the dad worked at a parts place. His brother owned this big parts place. In fact, he worked on trucks and stuff. And this little boy's dad was the parts manager. We were at their home visiting, and we had just finished eating. We came in, and we sat down around the easy chairs, and these folks was friends of ours. And this little boy come in, just a little boy. He come in, he just could talk good. And he come in carrying this little truck. And he had a terrible, sad look on his face. And his daddy said, what is wrong? He said, Dad, I think I tore the differential out of this thing. We got tickled. Now, you know, that's a pretty big word for a little fella. But you see, he heard his daddy say that, and that dad was teaching that boy to grow up. It's just terrible hard not to let make babies out of babies. But there is a time you get over the babyhood stage and you start moving on. And you know, that little fella had more wisdom in a lot of ways than a lot of grown-ups did. That boy knew exactly. I mean, talk about a differential. You asked him, where's the differential? And he could have told you. A little fella. See, what we sometimes think, well, children will be children. Who said they would be? I mean, there's 35-year-old people who are still children. When I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child. I thought as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. Now, that doesn't just, he said I became a man, but you can also become mature. There's a time to grow up. Let's not act like children, sitting around pouting and bucking because somebody treats you nicer than they treat me and all this. John the Baptist, the Bible said, and the child grew. Well, most children grow, but it said, and waxed strong in spirit, filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was upon him. Folks, when you start growing up, the grace of God, the favor of God will be upon you. Stop acting childish about everything. You see, most people don't want to play with children that are 35 years old. They want you to be growing up. And I've seen some people never got mature. They just always whining about something, and they're so much in a terrible shape. And then this comes to character development management. And I got children in parentheses here. I don't care how old you are, when you don't have proper management, you got a problem. Having a rude response. Children often have a rude response. I know a person in our circles that was as rude to me as you could get. This little fellow was rude. Just rude. His dad he'd say something to me just as hateful and mean. Daniel. His dad didn't care because his dad is rebellious as the rest of them. I think his dad thought it was fun to watch his boy being rebellious. Well, of course, they're not with us anymore. And he's got a doom ahead of him because he's teaching the boy how to go to hell. I wonder what's wrong with developing character instead of this blunt, careless management. There's some people you just know that they're going to be easily disturbed. You just know it. We were traveling one time with some people, and this one lady had nerve trouble. Serious nerve problems. Somebody sitting on the back seat pulled out a pair of fingernail clippers and went click, 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 click. Finally, they got their fingernails all clipped and threw the shavings out the door. And this woman couldn't handle it anymore. She said, "Don't you ever do that again. That gets on my nerves." And I don't suppose they ever did it again. And I thought, lady, you really got a problem, don't you? See, it's irritable, just nasty. You making me feel bad. My nerves is bad. There's a woman I knew years ago. Every time you see her, my nerves is bad tonight. Well, it was bad last night. And you know, children that's not considerate of each other, if you don't manage them, if you don't manage that circumstance, they're going to be really hateful to everybody else. They have to. Let me hit this in discount management. Now, I believe in discounts, and I think it's all right to have sales and etc. But you know, there's some people just want a discount on everything. I'm a preacher. Can I have 10% discounts? I'm so-and-so, could I have this? Unless they offer you a discount, can I say this without offending anybody? Unless they offer you a discount, don't mention it. After all, they need to make a living too. If they say, we're going to give you a discount, okay, but you don't be the motivator of it. Now, if they say all people 55 years or older gets a discount at this restaurant, take it up. I went to the restaurant one time back there, just turned 55. And I told this woman, I said, well, if a 55-year-old gets a senior citizen discount, I'll qualify. She thought I was kidding. She said, you're teasing me? I said, no, I'm 55. She said, you be 55. She said, I'll give you a discount, but there ain't no way in the sun you can be 55. I said, wait a little. I pulled my pocketbook out and got my the driver's license out, and I said, look at this. She said, you look like you'd be 35. Well, I said, that's all right. Yeah. She would have gave me a discount, but she questioned that. She thought I was trying to stick her with it. She said, it's all right, but you know this pastor's discount. That just makes me kind of upset. Pastors, some of them think they shouldn't tip the waitresses because they're preachers. Let me tell you my opinion. This is my opinion now, you understand? If you're a preacher, you better tip. If anybody ought to tip is a preacher, and do it with joy, it's going to cost you no more to have a smile on your face. Say thank you for the service. Did you know that? How much time I have now? I'm sorry to have to keep asking this, but I don't want to get this stuff and stuck on a tape somewhere. They don't have room for it, you know? Because this stuff you need to hear. And now you feel guilty because you don't give somebody a discount. I'm going to ask you something. You run a clothing store, and you got a nice clothing store over here, and you're selling a lot of stuff. And everybody from your church wants a discount. I want to ask you something. Did you realize that you're cutting in on somebody else's profit? Now, if they offer you that, it's a different story. Your church people, your kin folks expect you to give a discount, or they'll make you feel guilty. You the buyer, you the seller. Which one would you like to be now? If you were a seller, how would you like everybody to deal with you? Folks, this is practical stuff. You need to understand this is a part of managing your life. You put yourself in somebody else's shoes. You walk in the moccasins of that Indian, they used to say. Senior citizen discount. Yeah, I think it's wonderful to give a senior citizen discount. I think that's great. But if they don't say anything, I generally don't say anything. Woman up in Pennsylvania come up here, and she kind of shy like said, excuse me for asking this question, are y'all senior citizens? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, I'm afraid to ask anybody because it offends them. She said that we're not supposed to ask, but I thought I better ask y'all. I said, yes, ma'am, we are. She said, we can't ask them because they offend people. Well, whether you like it or not, some of you are senior citizens. Now, if you don't like it, I can't help it. You got born at the wrong time. I can't help it. I found out years ago that if you keep having birthdays, you will get old one day.